We are live. We are back. We need some quiet. Kirby was here. His phone went off. He's in the hall. When he comes in, I'm going back because I've got him. To see if we can walk through what the current use rules are, so we know exactly what we're opening up. There's Kirby. Okay, so we're going to take testimony from Kirby. I hope he can help us. If they do what at least a couple of us are concerned that they're doing, probably strike that section maybe. Other than the proposals about letting you donate $2,000 worth of food would be a qualification for getting yourself into current use. And just wondering what is required right now to get into current use. Said it's not all now you have to do is sell $2,000 worth of food, and you could be in current use. I thought there were land restrictions, size that you had to have, and so if you can help us understand what we're doing.
Sure. So Kirby Keaton, Legislative Council, I'm going to pull up S323. This is Bradley's bill, so I'm pulling off the committee page.
Yeah, I think we're more interested in what the current use regulations are.
Do you want me to share or just talk?
You can just talk.
Okay. So currently, the way it goes is this is from my experience, so hopefully the tax department wouldn't have a different perspective. But from my experience working there, when a person owns a parcel and they want to enroll it in current use, you can enroll it as forest land or ag land.
Right.
So this S23 change, it goes to the ag land enrollment. So nothing to do with forest land. And for ag land, if you have a larger parcel, more than 25 acres, generally it's an easier process from my experience. And hopefully I'm not contradicting anything PBR would say about that.
Okay.
But for the parcels that are smaller than 25 acres, you know, a little bit more scrutiny. And then, so this language from statute gets applied. It says there shall be a presumption that the land is used for agricultural purposes, which means it shall be presumed that you can enroll.
Yeah.
If first one, it's owned by a farmer and it's part of an overall farm unit. So that would be you're running a farm and you have the tax data to back up that you're a farmer. Like,
And to be a farmer, you have to earn a percentage of
50% or more of your income has to be from farm income on your tax return. So that's as far as the administration of that goes. From my understanding, that's pretty easy for the department. They can check that. The second is that you have to have a written lease for at least 3 years between yourself and a farmer, and then the farmer's using that portion of your parcel.
That's the guy that having their backyards cut for hay.
That's common for this is hay. It could be other things too. So since for that one, and go into detail a little bit more on that one, even though it's not the most relevant for 323. That's phrased in a way where it says, you know, it's leased to a farmer part of their farm operation. There's no limitation on the farm operation there, as in it could be livestock, it could be a lot of things.
Usually cattle.
So then we get to the third one, which is what is being proposed to be changed. And that one has different parts to it. It's produced an annual gross income from the sale of farm crops, specifically farm crops. Or the equivalent value, this is what's being proposed, or the equivalent value of donated farm crops. And then over, you know, a period of time, and it's at least 2,000 per year for 1 of 2 or 3 of 5 of the last years. For up to 25 acres. So 2,000 in annual gross income from the sale of farm crops. This change would allow that to be 2,000 of annual donations of farm crops.
Wait, I'm getting confused because said that in order to qualify, I had to be a farmer.
Yeah.
And in order to qualify as a farmer, I had to make 50% of my income from farming. But
But you can qualify under this, the subdivision we're talking about, you can qualify.
no, that's what I'm talking about current law.
That is current law is,
So current law, if I sell $2,000 worth of vegetables, I can put my land in current use.
Mhm.
If her parcel's up to 25 acres.
Really?
Yeah,
I've been
because-
missing out on
and I
this.
think the way,
Look at
I'm
the-
putting zucchini on my back.
Is there a minimum parcel size?
there's not a minimum parcel size, it's, 25 or fewer acres.
And it's,
If you're a farmer and you have the farming covered, then you aren't gonna bother with this
Don't
other
care
stuff.
about that other stuff.
Yeah,
It's easier for you to enroll. So this one's more niche. You could ask PBR maybe for, what percentage of enrollees would qualify under this only, like, I actually don't know that. So I don't know how common it is to use.
but I'm thinking if I can donate to the food bank, I can just take,
Mhm.
and I'm sure, Ag can tell me how many bushels of zucchini it's gonna take.
$7 kids.
Yeah,
They're real
$7 tomatoes.
see,
Get there real quick.
That I can take that data. If I've got 9 acres of land overlooking Lake Champlain or any other body of water in this state, for donating $2,000 worth of vegetables, I'm gonna save a lot more on having my prime land
So,
designated
yeah,
as
so the,
current use.
so kind of give you a picture of how that could play out, your land will have a certain value. If you were taxed normally, it would be the tax rate applied to that value.
To be the highest and best use, which is developable land.
Yeah, be its fair market value, its brand list value, what's we like it. And what being enrolled in current use does is bring that down to, for ag land, I want to say it's around 200 an acre.
Yeah.
And that
Value that.
it's value.
Yeah, yeah.
So even, and then so the percentage tax rate would be applied to that value. But what we said yesterday, I mean, one of the big costs in current use are the farm buildings, because they become zero, and a farm building can be the most valuable part of that parcel.
Yeah.
And so
About that one.
for some parcels, maybe this isn't a whole lot of foregone tax revenue, because the difference between the market value and the use value isn't that big, and they don't have farm buildings. And then in
Well,
another
then
case,
does my house count as a farm building?
no, you have your 2 acre house.
residential.
2
Okay.
acres.
Then it would be the tool shed, which isn't worth very.
If it's used.
Well, and I'm doing the
Yeah.
math in her head about whether she's gonna do these 285 tomatoes. next year.
I'm planting more rhubarb out in my bed.
Can I ask a question? And Alice Martine has a question.
You go first.
Okay, so Kirby, I'm looking at the language right now, and it's the equivalent, the sale or equivalent of donated in 1 of 2 or 3 of 5 years preceding the enrollment in the, so if somebody does it 1 year, they can get into current use. And then is there a requirement that they continue to do it every year?
No, they could unenroll, but then they're,
No, but that they continue to donate every year, that they
They
continue
would
to
need-
donate to,
they would need,
Or every other year.
they would
or
need
every
to,
other year,
So-
or 3 of 5 years.
3 of 5, so that way if you have two bad years in a row as far as crops go, then you can rely on 3 to 4.
Drought. Right,
Okay, so that there is somebody checking to make sure they're continuing to do it. Not just doing it
You,
one
you
year.
have, you have to submit your application every year,
Yeah, okay.
yeah, and show, how you qualify.
Thanks, Kirby. On the smaller than 25 acres, is there a minimum size?
No,
So I am gonna do a hypothetical. So if I live, sorry. So if I live on
don't
a,
have rhubarb.
if I live on a 2-acre lot and I grow asparagus and then I put it out on a table in my front yard,
Mhm.
and with a little like pay, you know,
My
on,
neighbor does that.
yeah.
Yeah.
And if you make $2,000, you could be in current use.
you can, but I mean, there's some practical things I'll point out about that. Let's say you have a half acre or something and you're barely hitting the 2,000. And the fair market value between the fair market value of that half an acre and the use values, maybe it's a few thousand. But then when the tax rate gets applied to a few thousand, you know, you don't have that large of a tax bill for that. And then you've got to pay and go through all of the bureaucracy to enroll in current use. So there's still some practical effect of like, there's a point at which it's probably not worth it, even if you can save a few dollars. So there is that, but the high potential for savings would be if you had maybe 10 acres and you actually do have some buildings and you are using those buildings for ag.
Right.
And you're not a farmer though, because let's say you have an income from other places, right?
Hedge fund.
Yeah, yes.
And does a
you know,
greenhouse count as a farm building?
yeah, there's the farm crops definition, so,
Okay,
and if that helps, I can tell you that.
well,
I was thinking, maybe
a greenhouse, oh, yeah.
oh yeah, greenhouse, a barn. Probably one of the larger ones is, farm worker housing. That's tax exempt. So if you put up a nice house, we had a slight argument on the floor with the former chair of ag about why did farm worker housing have to be on the farm? Why couldn't it be somewhere else?
So farm crops includes animal fiber, cider, wine and cheese produced on the enrolled land. So it's those things plus orchard lands, fruit producing bushes, vines. They're not yet of bearing age.
It does say
That's fine.
produced on the
There's
enrolled
a lot
land
of
or
money.
on the house site adjoining the enrolled land. You can produce in your home. Make the cider at home, especially thanks to the building.
That's right.
Pickled asparagus.
You can do pickled asparagus.
I'm thinking more of yak fiber. That's going for hundreds of dollars a pound.
You could be knitting with that, yeah.
I would.
Oh, yeah.
I think there have been people with little
It's
goat
getting
farms.
late. Okay, I think right now, if I sell $2,000 worth of zucchini,
Mhm.
I can go in and I can ask if I want to go through all the paperwork, and I guess the tax department knows because I'm supposed to clear the income.
And you let them put a lien on your land. Don't
And,
forget that. And
oh,
it's-
that's right,
So
because
from
if I want to
thereafter, you put a
unenroll,
land use change tax if you develop
that's
it.
right.
So you are binding yourself to some
So
things.
you are finding yourself in, and the value of that acre in the city of Montpelier probably won't, the difference won't cover the cost of the fertilizer and whatever compost or whatever else I need to put on there to do high intensity gardening. But if I own 25 acres and it has a guest house on it and a barn and a really nice tool shed, and I grow $2,000 worth of crops on 2 acres, I can have my entire property or just that 2 acres in current use.
They require maps and you have to map out what is. the
Okay, so I'd have to
agricultural
spread out the crops.
land. And I think people who have a house and 25 acres will often have a lot of forest land. You can get a forest management plan and that could
Yeah,
easily be
there's a
an
lot
easier
of-
way to for use.
Forest. There is a fairly high penalty for coming out of current use. So you can't, it's not worthwhile to park your land there for a short amount of time. I'm just not. I'm not comfortable with this for whatever, I'm not sure. I mean, it doesn't take that much to return open land to agriculture if the soil is good and suitable for ag. We do prime ag land and make it difficult to build on. Committee. Thoughts on this one?
My thoughts are is that donating is a lot easier than selling. I mean, it just is. And 25 acres of land, I mean, I don't, even in my area, I don't see much land that's going for less than 5,000 acre, and a lot of it's a lot more than that. And that's a big difference between that and $200 or whatever the current value is per bucket. What is current valuation for, you'd say 200, Kirby?
Yeah, I would say that was my guess. It depends on.
537.
37.
Forest land's 208. Forest land greater than a mile.
$2,000 for tomatoes, believe me. So-
Yeah, I think I may spend that buying 3-pound, 10-pound boxes of seconds.
And there wasn't. I mean, I agree. I think there's a lot, it's a lot easier to donate things than to try to sell on a market. Do all the stuff you have to do to be an actual farmer. So, I'm wondering, and they didn't seem to, there has been no, haven't had much testimony on
Yeah.
what the
Any-
impact of this would be, and.
Because that's going on, that difference is paid out of the general fund.
The
Right.
different.
Oh, it's out of the
It's
education.
out of the education fund, so this is, we don't know what
The
the
money that doesn't go in, it is an education.
Yeah, it's buried in those, homestead and non-homestead revenues. It's buried in those numbers.
in
It's
those
like,
numbers.
I don't know, it's,
Okay,
and
so
in the general fund too, because once you put it in current use, they get the municipal deduction and the general fund covers that. So it's both.
that's what the general fund.
That's what's general. fund
Oh,
covers.
yeah, I forgot about that one.
Yeah, so
Okay,
it's both. And I think it's, when you add it all up, it's about 80 million bucks.
in
total.
the
It's foregone.
interest of moving this forward. I think I've got a majority vote. I'm looking for 2 more in here. Would we be okay with deleting this section and moving this bill out?
The other sections that have to do with the donated crops seem less problematic, right? There are 3 sections.
I
that it
think,
deals
I
with.
think Bradley was interested in cleaning that up. I don't know if you want to.
Oh, is it the extra?
The reference to the rolled land part of it,
Oh,
I think
that's
you
right.
wanted to get the reference correct. for
Okay,
this
so
section.
maybe this won't come out today. If you can draft an amendment to strike,
It would be, the sections you're talking about would be sections 5 and 6.
Okay.
That's my understanding, you want to remove those.
yeah,
Section 4 that Ellen went over, you're fine with, it sounds like.
yeah,
And then, and would you like also to include in that same amendment, just Bradley, making those tweaks?
yeah, Bradley was gonna clean up some of the language, it was a little,
I can connect with him to get you an amendment, I had no idea if it'll be today or tomorrow.
Okay, because this has to go across the hall. I'm pretty sure they're taking testimony on it. But I'd like to get that out. Okay, so as soon as you get us something,
Okay.
maybe. Hopefully, we won't be on the floor as long tomorrow. And we can start around 1:15. Nobody asked questions. We can be here at 1:15 with lunch. And
Just talking about.
because cannabis, I think both cannabis and tobacco are gonna take us a while, and they've all gotta go too. So I'm gonna keep us moving.
Alrighty,
Okay, so if you could do that,
okay,
we will go back now. And we're still going through testimony on the tobacco bill without benefit of having walked through the bill. But we do have it on our website, so you can follow along with comments, concerns that we hear as soon as we do, yeah, as soon as we get Jen, we'll go to her. So let's see where we are. And Ted's not here, and I'm gonna send ads. But the next witness I have is my night commissioner.
Perfect timing.
Perfect timing. I know the room is booked.
You what?
This room is booked. There's too much perfect timing with people.
Well, she's been.
If I say the word Vince, he'll come through the door, guaranteed.
Miss Hannah texted me to let me know.
Yeah, that's.
She took away the mask. My time was up. Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Thanks I appreciate the opportunity to talk about the tobacco bill.
okay.
I will be brief because it's late.
I think that's probably the concern I've heard
Okay,
floating around is the increase in the fees. At least that's where my emails are saying
I'm sure.
the
Yes,
concern is in the public.
I'm sure. So the administration would not support an increase in fees. The governor's been very clear about that. The department doesn't support an increase in fees. We're part of the administration, and our retailers are already struggling to stay into business, so we don't support an increase in fees.
Okay,
Which section of the bill is this? I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Oh, is this the
Page
page
five.
5? Right,
Yeah.
right, okay, okay.
So the other piece, well, I can stop there and you can
okay,
ask.
just
any
walk
questions.
us
Yeah.
through what the rest of your testimony.
They-
I've been told that that's paid for an enforcement officer.
That was my next
Oh,
piece. that I was
okay,
gonna
keep
talk
going.
Yes. So we do not support the addition of another position at the department. It is not in our recommended budget to the governor. It is not in the governor's budget. Governor is focused on affordability. We already do this work with the 14 sworn law enforcement officers. So we do not support the addition of a position.
Could you use another enforcement?
We are all set with the current staff we have, Madam Chair. Thank you. Okay. Two other pieces. Deputy Commissioner Samaroff talked about the discussions that we have already had with PAX, DLL, and the AG's office, and we think it makes absolute sense to move the authority of regulating and licensing the tobacco wholesalers to the Department of Liquor and Lottery. We already regulate retail tobacco, we regulate wholesale alcohol, retail alcohol, so it makes imminent sense to do that. As Deputy Commissioner said, we don't need a study, we just need to do it. We can work on that, we need a year to do, so we're fully supportive of that. That makes it a lot easier for us to do our job.
Is there a study in here?
There was, sorry, and apparently it's gone, which is great,
Good.
no
All right.
study needed.
Can I ask you a question? Just back to the enforcement, the proposal of a new position. What? because we haven't had a walkthrough of the bill, so I'm not sure
We are.
everything that had,
We are.
is happening
Yeah.
in it yet.
Watch
But-
the line here.
Is there, I mean, have you all, I know you don't want a position, I know you have to say all that, I get it. But have there been issues that would lead someone to believe that there should be more enforcement? You're
Not from our perspective.
Okay,
This again, who's leading this bill is the Attorney General's office. So I think maybe that's a question for the Attorney General's
Okay.
office, why they're asking for us to have a position.
Okay,
Maybe the Attorney General's office needs to ask for a position for their department, but we don't need law enforcement to do online tobacco compliance.
okay,
And we're not asking for a
okay,
position.
so that's what
Okay.
this is about, online tobacco.
Correct.
I
And
know
again, that's a
You
question.
have issues. with-
Correct. That would be a question for the
Okay.
Attorney General's office.
All right, that's good to know. This a question?
Yeah, so I was gonna, as a con, with Senator Brock's not here, we're both on the morning committee. It was crossover week and we just knew that this conversation was gonna happen in finance and pro. So I won't speak for the chair, but in my impression, she's quite deferential to us to have this conversation here to calibrate those fees to something
Ah.
that's a little more palatable to both the administration and otherwise we just didn't have the time. So I don't think we were hardened in the numbers that came in.
She's got
There's
less time.
giant
than we
increases. So
In-
it's
indeed.
less.
But I think we had time.
I know that we sent
She's
the,
buying pizza.
Yeah. indeed.
sorry, the alcohol fees. So we
Yeah.
sent you what the fees are for alcohol. And you can look at that to see whether or not you would align them, the tobacco with the alcohol fees.
Okay, but are we changing any? Do we have a shortfall that requires that we raise fees at all? Or should we just,
I don't understand your question.
well,
Inflation adjust them.
yeah, should we adjust the fees? I mean, fees are supposed to cover the service. $1,000 is a lot of money coming up from what, two something.
100, I think.
Yeah, I mean, for both.
Yeah.
The easiest thing for this committee is to just strike the increase, just because we don't really have any more time than the morning committee had to do a rational discussion, so unless, and this is going to the other body where perhaps there would be more time. So I'm wondering, should we keep it where it is? Should we tweak it up a little bit?
So the governor would not support, nor would the department support an increase in fees.
Yes,
So I would, so the alignment to the liquor fees, it wouldn't be an increase in fees, right? You're trying to structure it to align with, for example, the wholesaler. Now we have the wholesale licensing of tobacco is going to move to the department.
okay,
There is not a fee associated with that. And we would recommend that you align it to what the liquor fees are.
You said you sent those, I'm trying.
We
to find
did,
it.
no, sorry,
Morning committee, I
Mine-
can send them to you.
we sent it to another committee.
Oh,
We will send it to this
Law
committee.
Thank you.
yeah, so we should align the wholesaler fee with the liquor wholesaler.
Correct, and if you're asking my opinion about fees, I would suggest that that's the strategy you use for any of the fees you're contemplating
Okay,
for tobacco.
so these are the new fee, because it's coming from tax, who hasn't been charging
Correct,
fee. But you were going to need
a fee for that.
a fee for you to administer.
Correct, because it would be a new license that we would be
Be a
issuing.
new license that you would be.
Correct.
But that's not the $100 to $1,000.
It's not, it's
No.
$1,245 if I remember correctly. The wholesale,
Wholesale,
correct,
not the store.
that's what we charge the wholesale liquor. Is a wholesale liquor fee, and that's what I would recommend you look for a tobacco wholesale,
Okay,
same.
okay. That's logical.
And then the final point I will make is that we are in agreement about prohibiting deceptive products,
Oh, good.
which is, I don't know where it is, but wherever it is in this bill, we agree that makes sense and we support
Okay.
that.
And what are the deceptive products?
I think the AG's office is, yes, yes, it's their bill. They can tell you about deceptive products.
Okay,
But we think that makes sense. We don't agree with the
okay,
deceptive products.
okay. Any questions for the commissioner?
So. I think just back on the fees, commissioners, so you're not referring to the $110 fee and the $50 fee.
What page are you on?
Page 5.
Yes.
Are those
I
maybe,
think that's what, yeah.
Yes.
that's referring to.
so you want to go from 110 to 1250?
No, I don't wanna
This is
ever
a new-
increase the fee,
Oh, okay.
Senator.
So what was the
What I'm
1250?
suggesting, it's new. So it's not, so what's happening is the tax department has right now has their authority of licensing the wholesalers of tobacco, combustible tobacco. There's no fee associated with that. So if we're gonna move it over to DLL, which makes sense
Yeah.
for us to issue the license, we have to attach a fee to that license.
You're talking about the fee, page 6, which is wholesale.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay,
Correct.
wholesale
Sorry,
dealers.
yes, yes.
Okay,
So we need to attach a fee to that, and we're recommending that we use the fee that we would
Wholesale.
use for.
okay,
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
helpful.
Okay,
yeah. There are other things in the bill, depending on how far this gets, that we can talk about, details that we would need to talk about, but I don't think we're at that position. We're not there yet. I don't wanna take the time to go over all the details. There's some nuances of how we do things. The way the bill is written isn't how we do things. And so at another time, assuming you're able to address the increase in fees in the position, then we can have more conversations about those.
okay. So this, vision of liquor license fee, this ups the license fee from $110 to $1,000 municipal license.
Correct. So we don't support any of those increases in fees.
Okay,
So the other thing to point out is, I don't.
but
We're
there's
looking
no
at section,
fee in here for the wholesaler.
correct,
Right? Okay,
that's correct.
so
That is what,
you would like us to drop that
Senator-
down, all of those fees. And do the wholesale.
correct. So you're attaching a new fee to the new license of a wholesale tobacco, and then we're recommending that you align the tobacco fees with what we do on the liquor side.
Okay.
Wholesalers, yeah.
I don't want to steal Ted Barnett's thunder. I think he's gonna come in and suggest if we were to look at the last time this fee was set and adjusting for inflation, it would increase it to $143.65. Not as be a good position on it, but if you have any reactions to what I think JFO is gonna suggest, that would be in 2016, inflation's just for about 30%. Let bring it to 143.65.
I have nothing to say at this point. I mean, the fees are, I don't know how long our fees have been in place. I think you're gonna need at some point to talk about them. We've talked about this with economic development. I mean, why you would attach a, what are you calling it? Inflation. Why you would do that for one fee and not the rest of them? I don't know. I mean,
We
we
would
would,
do it because we did a 3-year cycle and the
Yeah.
governors ended the 3-year cycle.
Yeah.
And so we end up, as we did with motor vehicles, with large increases, which people hate.
of course they do.
Yes, so it's easier to do 3%
Understood.
every couple.
Yeah, I don't
years
have a
than you do
position to offer on that
30%
inflation.
Yes. Okay. Okay, we understand about supporting the governor's budget, so.
Well, I'm also supporting our retailers.
Yes.
Right, and,
Well,
we give
there's a
them-
big space between 100 and.
Yes,
We have a
Yes.
director. The right one? Yes, you are the right one. It'll make our life a lot easier if we know what we're talking about, so. I think we've got your test.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
And that was, and perhaps you've already gone over it, but that increase from $100 to $1,000. What is your understanding of the rationale behind that desire from others?
I have no idea. I didn't propose it, so.
Yeah, I know that.
Maybe we should
I'm
hear
just wondering
from
if you, what feedback, if any,
Yeah.
you've heard as to why anybody wanted that done in that way.
Yeah, I think you should talk to the people who are asking for that increase.
Yeah, and we will.
Yeah.
Okay. Jen, have you had time to catch your breath?
Okay, thank you.
Good, okay. All right, so we have to all the people who's needed here now.
Thank you. Have a good night.
So as soon as you're ready, Jen. Yeah, it'll be really helpful if we could walk through this film before we start. So they took the barbell on the floor. The health insurance. Okay,
No, no.
can't object, so we can't object to their doing that, but. Yeah. They should meet the same, no, that wouldn't work either, would it, if they met the same time we did? Y'all couldn't just sit in the hall of flags and. Wait. Okay. All right, let's walk through this one.
Thank you for your patience. Jen Harvey from the Office of Legislative Counsel. Let's look at language up on the screen. So we are looking at S 198. An act relating to the regulation and taxation as introduced of tobacco products and tobacco substitutes. This is the bill as recommended by the Committee on Economic Development of the General Affairs. The strike all amendment starts out with by amending 7 VSA Chapter 40, which is the chapter on tobacco products. And some of these things are more substantive than others. And amends the definition of tobacco license, and part of what is happening in this chapter and in this bill is moving the licensure and regulation of wholesale dealers from Department of Taxes to the Department of Liquor and Lottery. There's an amendment to the definition of tobacco substitute, some of which is just structural, but also looking at capturing any product that contains that or is derived from or manufactured from tobacco or nicotine, natural or synthetic, including nicotine alkaloids and nicotine analogs. It's intended for human consumption by smoking, chewing, inhaling, sucking, absorbing, or consuming in any other manner for all kinds of emerging products. And it is not a tobacco product, which is also a defined term, which includes things like cigarettes and cigars, rolling your own tobacco. The existing definition is still here as well. The term tobacco substitute includes electronic cigarettes. That's really where it started. And other electronic or battery powered devices that contain or are designed to deliver nicotine or other substances into the body through the inhalation of vapors and have not been approved by the FDA for tobacco cessation and other purposes, medical purposes, and then it specifically includes nicotine pouches and any liquids, whether they have nicotine in them or not, and delivery devices sold separately for use with a tobacco substitute. This term tobacco substitute comes up a lot in the bill, so it's good to know what that is. We already have an existing carve out saying cannabis products are handled differently, so that's not what we're talking about here. And then we add in definitions of licensed wholesale dealers and issues related to wholesale dealers. So these are really the same definitions with minimal changes to refer to this chapter, things like that, from the tax statutes. So I won't go through those definitions, but they're the same definitions that we're going to repeal in the tax. Actually, the underlying provisions go away.
This is the movement from tax.
This is part of the movement from tax, exactly. Part of that is just starting by using the same definitions. Section 1002, we're still in Title 7, clarifying that we're talking about licenses for retail sale here because we're about to add in provisions on the wholesale dealers. This bill, decouples, it separates liquor licenses from tobacco licenses. Currently, they are, they can be issued together. And, now this would require them to be issued separately. And it increases some fees. So under existing law, for a license or endorsement licenses to sell tobacco products, endorsement is on top of the license to sell tobacco substitutes. And a person has to apply to the legislative body of the municipality where the retail location will be located and pay certain fees. And so this would increase the fees to the legislative bodies of the municipality from $110 to $1,000 for a tobacco license or renewal, and from $50 to $1,000 for a tobacco substitute endorsement. It also increases the penalties for selling tobacco products, tobacco substitutes, or tobacco paraphernalia without a tobacco license and endorsement as applicable. Changes it from a misdemeanor and a criminal fine to a civil penalty. And it increases from not more than $200 to not more than $2,000 for the first offense, and not more than $500 to not more than $5,000 for each subsequent offense. So this is sales, retail sales for sales without a retail license.
We've got a question.
Why do we have the establishment send it to the legislative body of the municipality and then forward that on to the DLO?
I don't know how this came about.
I'm thinking about, large retailer establishment have 50 towns, say. They have to go through 50 different towns just for those 50 different towns to send it to the same place.
It appears that way, but I don't know how. I think that would be a question for the towns or for
You have to have a local liquor license
I know they have to
because
vote.
the town, well, the select board usually, unless you have a town ordinance.
Brandon King, I'm the Deputy Chief of Liquor and Lottery for the record. So to answer your question, all the towns need to approve a liquor license before the state can approve them. While the language in the current statute says that the municipality takes the fees, collects them, and then forwards them to the division, that is not practically what happens. Since we went to the online licensing portal in 2022, we collect those fees directly on behalf of the municipality because we saw exactly the problem that you're bringing up, that was an undue burden and we could just collect the fee directly.
So all that time I had to put on my liquor certificate hat and vote a liquor license. Any money collected from that didn't go to the municipality?
Only for tobacco and tobacco substitutes.
Only for tobacco. All right,
The municipality still get a portion of the fee
all
for
right.
liquor licenses.
Okay, that's all right. So this is a new tobacco. All right.
So in that same vein about how towns have to approve them, is that from prohibition, come down prohibition?
Well, there's the more prohibitions. I don't think
Why?
it ever prohibited tobacco. There's all kinds of, you can't put a bar near a school, a church, there's local ordinances. We have dry towns. At least we used to have one in my county. I don't know if they've overridden it yet. It's the locals have to vote to allow cannabis in. It goes back to you regulating your town and what you want in your town. And if you don't want liquor establishments,
But if everyone, like, no one outlaws it, why do these establishments have to go? I'm thinking about bringing it up in current times versus having to go through it every single day.
this is tobacco.
To get through. Right.
So I don't think municipalities issue a tobacco license.
But so far, these have been a combined
Yeah. That's
Liquor
right,
and
and they're to sell, right?
just for
Yeah.
retail stuff.
For retail sale. So if we separate it, I guess the question is, do we want the municipalities to be able to regulate who sells tobacco? They don't now. That I know of. I never voted on.
Might be a different committee to have that discussion. I don't know, but we did have that discussion.
Okay, so right now you can go online and get your license for
So
liquor and I assume tobacco once.
all of those licenses currently go to the municipality prior to, and be approved by them prior to coming back to us for issuance.
And the.
So the statute,
With
as
you?
it's currently written, right, it does direct the municipality to collect the fees for a tobacco license and tobacco substitute, but then take that money and forward it back to us. We thought that didn't make a lot of sense when we went to the online
Yeah,
portal and got away from our paper forms. So we just collect that money ourselves
Okay.
and save them the hassle of having to forward it back to us.
all right.
So if that's the case, then don't you think it makes sense to just update the statute here under B and C? I think it is, page 5. Just get rid of the legislative body of the municipality.
I think, yes, I think we have to look at this, because after that, in subdivision 2, the municipal clerk forwards the application to the division. And forwards the fees to the commission. I mean, I think there would need to be some,
Multiple places.
yeah, which doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means like you're not prepared to do it on the fly.
Yeah.
So is everything now done through the online portal?
Yes,
So everything's done. This is tobacco and alcohol sales. Not where you put a bar.
So liquor licenses still go through the local municipality. They have to either select board or a dedicated liquor control board. But does that happen with tobacco sales? I don't think.
it does also happen with tobacco licenses. Now, the town's authority on what they can or cannot do, I'm not prepared to speak to. That is really a league question, League of Cities and Towns. I'm not really prepared to talk
We'll
about that.
have to see
Our
what
direction when we
the
get questions from municipalities about what they can't, like, can they deny a license as an example for tobacco? We tell them, we are not the authority in that regard and they should consult with their town attorney.
I don't ever remember. I did a lot of moving. License,
So it's a,
catering permits or, yeah.
on city council for 8 years, we have to review every year all the liquor licenses. I just don't remember doing it for tobacco.
I don't either, but they would tie.
Right, because they're,
They were the same license. And the towns really,
But I don't think the fee has to go to the municipality. I think you can still collect the fee as part of the application, but you still need the local municipality to review the application to ultimately bless it.
Yeah, I don't think anything would change if you just struck out the part that said the municipality would forward the money back to the division. Everything else should stay the same.
Yeah, I think I wasn't suggesting that we make any bigger change rather than just cleaning up the statute, because I think it's a bigger discussion
Yeah.
about the whole, like, the girl license thing.
yeah. Let's keep moving.
okay. So we looked at these penalties, and then this is an expansion a bit on the prohibition on engaging in, right now, no person shall engage in the retail sale of tobacco products, tobacco substitutes, and other products, unless they are a licensed wholesale dealer or purchase them from a licensed wholesale dealer. This would add in as well, no person shall engage in the importation, distribution, wholesale sale, or retail sale, or a combination, unless they are a licensed wholesale dealer or acquire them, purchase them from a licensed wholesale dealer. Then we get into the wholesale dealers themselves. There are 5 sections in the tax statutes that deal with different aspects of licensure, and I've combined them into one section here in Title 7 and just use for the most part, their former section headings as these subsection headings. So they'll appear in bold in the statute book if this goes all the way through the process. So this is requiring the license for a wholesale dealer. It gives information on the application and the issuance of the license. Licenses are issued with, by the division upon application without charge on forms prescribed by the department. So I've not changed anything on that in here. Penalties for sales without a license. I'm not recalling offhand what they were penalties were in, previous law, but there was interest in Senate Economic Development in, having them mirror the penalties in the enhanced retail penalty. So it was 20, that's what it was. It was $25. So in the tax statutes right now, the penalty for a licensed wholesale dealer who sells, offers, or possesses with intent to sell without getting a license is fined not more than $25 for the first offense and not more than 25 or not more than 200 or less than $25 for each subsequent offense. This instead tracks with the increases for retail sales at a license to 2,000 and 5,000.
If judiciary doesn't want to take that,
I can
it
ask,
sounds like a $25 is hardly a slap on the wrist. We probably put that in the 1940s. When $25 was a lot of money.
what,
You know, especially if you're a wholesaler. I mean, this is a business. You shouldn't be operating without a license.
what did that line up with, Jeff? Again, you said
The numbers to line up with the increased retail sale penalties in the.
If we're taking out any penalty for youth,
They were not there yet though.
okay, now.
So we're still in the wholesaler. We've got language on the term of the license and the revocation or suspension of the license. Again, other than waivers, increases, and a couple of conforming language changes for clarity, the language is the same as what is in the tax statutes. Now we're at the language that is repealed. This is section 1005 of the existing chapter. And this is the section on minors, persons under 21 years of age, possession of tobacco products or misrepresenting age or purchasing tobacco products. This would strike the language prohibiting a minor from possessing, purchasing, or attempting to purchase, except within very specific circumstances that are working at a retail establishment or it's in connection with indigenous cultural tobacco practices. Also taking out the provision on misrepresenting age to purchase, and the penalty, which is a $25 civil penalty confiscation and $25 civil penalty brought in the Judicial Bureau and refer to traffic ticket.
I do remember
Additional provisions on false.
having some real disagreements with this at one point. This is not the first time. So it's still illegal for you to buy tobacco products under the age of what, 21?
Currently, yes, under this, with these provisions removed, I believe it would be illegal to sell or furnish to a minor. It would not be illegal to have a
Okay,
minor
so
possess.
I'm I'm an 18-year-old. I look really mature for my age. I've got a false ID. It's illegal for me to go in and misrepresent my age and buy alcohol or tobacco. But there's no penalty. There is no negative consequence for breaking the law.
So let's keep alcohol separate because this is
Okay.
only dealing with tobacco.
But there is no negative consequence.
There is, if these provisions were repealed and there may be separate legal provisions dealing with the use of a false identification, but specifically for purposes of the tobacco statutes, this would be removing the penalties for purchase, use, or possession of tobacco products, tobacco substitutes, or tobacco paraphernalia by law.
So it's illegal for me to do any of that.
And it would not be explicitly illegal for you to do it because it would not be because
So we're making it legal to buy?
We're not-
No, I'm
No.
not right. See, I'm
but it is
sending this message.
putting the onus on the person selling or selling to or providing to the minor.
Having had a son get nailed for selling to a 19 or 20-year-old who had been buying for 10 years. Now, this said son was like 16 or 17 working in the Grand Union. Now you're saying that 17-year-old clerk is probably gonna get fired.
That's, I mean, that's
But
not
the
changing.
20
other than
but the
penalties that are
20-year,
current.
no, but you're not he's the seller.
Right, the seller.
So you're
Yeah.
not removing the penalty for a minor seller acting in good faith. I'm not, but you are removing the penalty from the 20-year-old who goes in and misrepresents their age.
I'd say the Committee on Economic Development. is-
Yes, they did that. It was a general term. I've had this fight before. I don't know when, but I remember having it.
Yes,
Did
and
you have the moment?
Hmm?
Did you have the moment?
It was probably
this was
down
not
there.
unanimously, unanimously supported by that committee, either, and I'll refer to the members of that committee if they want to say more about the rationale or.
Just my parent hat, which says if you're not gonna have a penalty, then it's legal.
I wouldn't mind hearing from the members on that committee what.
So I have reservations with this too, but I will say this, the kids that do it aren't necessarily the ones that I think need to bear the full brunt of any penalties on. It's really those that are providing the tobacco products. I recall in testimony, and I look for Senator Brock to fill in the gaps on this, that it's not as necessarily the stores that are doing it, but it is the cousins, the older siblings, the parents in some cases providing the vapes. And so we wanted the brunt of the consequence to fall on those providing the tobacco, not necessarily
All of the consequences.
Well, the committee perhaps was somewhat split because I was in favor of not allowing the juvenile perpetrator to get away scot-free.
Mhm.
I thought there should be something associated with what he or she did as well.
It's a sticking point.
I voted.
I'm thinking if you're somebody who's over the age of 21, you're that cousin, older sibling, whatever, and you leave your vape out on the table and your 20-year-old sibling snags it.
Just for selling, or is this?
Just selling or, I mean, we haven't gotten to those penalties yet, but they're for selling or furnishing, so,
If your parents
leaving
buy
something
it,
out.
use a cigarette.
Is that furnishing?
I don't know if that's, I think you might have to be more of an affirmative act to be furnishing.
Hmm.
I mean, the testimony, and I don't know what you've heard while I was upstairs, but the testimony was largely around concern by the advocates who are in favor of removing these provisions and penalties, was really concern around penalizing youth who become addicted to highly addictive substances, and concern that if you are penalizing them for their addiction, they will not come forward to receive treatment services.
If you penalize you're not penalizing them for their addiction. You're saying there's a penalty for buying that before you become addicted. This
That was
is a
the argument, that was the
long-term
nature of the
parental
argument.
thing. It's probably age, but there are negative consequences. And if you don't learn that early on, if there are no negative consequences until you become addicted, that's a hard way to learn. I mean, you could use the same argument for any drug. We shouldn't penalize you for buying
Alcohol,
alcohol
because that would still.
or heroin or,
Right, this is not changing, and alcohol's in a different chapter, we're
Alcohol
not
still
telling that.
has-
but this is just principle, I think.
No, I'm just saying that
Yeah.
you would be charged with the alcohol, but not the tobacco. It's a
For possession.
Right,
Right.
right.
I think
But
that
you
is,
would be
I
charged
think that is the
with
result of
possession of a beer.
the head of enforcement here too.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? So, sorry, I'm getting really tired, so it's hard for me to focus on this, but, I think what section 1005, starting in the middle of page 8, striking that whole section is striking the possession of tobacco products. Or misrepresenting age or purchasing tobacco products. So this isn't about selling them. This is
Right,
about
selling is in the next,
getting
right, selling is the next
them
section.
or having them.
No,
And so
it's about now removing the penalty for the 16, 17, 18, 19-year-old who goes in with a fake ID and buys cigarettes, chewing tobacco, whatever they buy. And I know
Right,
the
so
police
this,
don't want,
this is about them having or getting them.
Right.
yes,
So the next section is about them
Somebody
furnishing
providing-
them to another person. So,
or their parents or a 21-year-old furnishing them.
but wait, I'm trying to understand this. Can I just talk to Jen?
Yeah.
Okay, so the first part that the all struck is saying, if you're under 21 and you possess or misrepresent your age or purchase tobacco, this is taking away the penalties for doing that. Yes, okay. And then the second part, the next part, 1007, is for those same aged people under 21, furnishing it, just,
It's not specific about the age of the person doing the. furnishing.
okay.
A person or entity, it's our broad definition of person from Title I, so.
okay,
So anyone who sells or furnishes these items to someone under 21 years of age is subject to the civil penalty.
okay. So it could be somebody under 21 years of age furnishing the tobacco to somebody else under 21
I
years.
believe it should be, but I don't know how that plays out in this. I mean,
It
I
says earlier in the bill that they have to be 16 to sell, so there's a minimum age to sell.
Yeah.
Right, but I don't think Senator Hardy is necessarily talking about the legal retail sales.
Right, yeah, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the illegal furnishing of. So if there's an 18-year-old who somehow acquires tobacco, it's not, they're not gonna be penalized for acquiring it. What they're gonna be penalized for is giving it to their friends, furnishing it to their friends.
Potentially, again, I don't know how the enforcement works.
Right, and that, I think that's the distinction a little bit that the way I see it is that we're not getting rid of the penalty for somebody under age 18 to have it because they could be addicted or there could be extenuating circumstances to be this bill. That didn't have anything to do with it, but the bill is getting rid of the penalties for underage kids possessing or obtaining it, but not getting rid of penalties for if they obtain it and then try to give it to somebody else.
But if
Yeah, okay.
then if it is illegal, there should be a penalty. Otherwise, what's the point of having a law that says it's illegal? If nothing bad happens, then there is no incentive for you not to take your fake ID and waltz in to the local grocery store and buy a carton of cigarettes.
Well, I think I think that the sort of argument in that situation is that the person selling, the clerk is the one who should not
It's
have.
already legal. And they are pretty strict. I have a friend whose brother owns a general store. According to him, they sent in this lovely young woman with a low cut shirt on, very distractive, and she was 16 and tried to buy cigarettes. His response was, "How dumb do you think I am?" But they do work.
Right, so I think that I think the theory is that the penalty should be on us. The sort of
It
supplier.
is. That's why every time I try and buy a bottle.
Right,
of wine,
I know.
have to get my license.
So I guess I'm confused as to what.
It's a philosophy. Why make something illegal if nothing bad happens if you break the law? You might as well just say it's legal.
So this would have the law be silent on possession at any age.
There's no penalty.
I would just echo what I heard Jen remind me of, which is kids that haven't very addicted to this very addictive substance will less likely seek assistance if they know that it's going to be consequence and they're going to get in all these sorts of trouble for just having or even admitting that they have smoke. And I do like the point that you raised, Senator Hardy, is that if there's an underage individual that has a carton of cigarettes from New Hampshire or whatever, and they give those packs out to friends, that's still against the law.
That's
That's
against the
punishing.
law now, and
Yeah.
that gets penalized.
Right, and that
But
would stay.
you
If the
don't
bill
get
states that-
addicted without possessing and smoking. And you don't get addicted by smoking one cigarette.
But I think the argument is that the way that you're gonna get the cigarettes in a lot of cases by somebody giving them to you, like when you're a 13-year-old, you know, your big brother's gonna give them to you, or
pay
your,
from your
your,
parents' pocket.
And often what we're talking about here and what was talked about a lot in the Economic Development Committee was the nicotine pouches and the vapes that we're gonna get to in a minute here, but that look like video games, look like other things that in some cases gamify the number of hits you take on it, which can increase nicotine consumption, which can increase addiction.
yeah.
So again, you get to decide what you want to do with this. I've just heard a lot of
Okay,
testimony.
the cannabis people are here, so I'm gonna move us
All right.
getting through this. I don't think we're gonna get this bill out. And whether or not we're gonna get it, you know, what the vote will be. Well,
All right,
All right.
ready to, so we have the 1007 on page 9 is furnishing tobacco to individuals under 21 years of age. This would increase the civil penalty for furnishing, selling or furnishing tobacco products, tobacco substitutes, or tobacco paraphernalia to someone under 21 years of age. And that would go from not more than $100 for a first offense to not more than $1,000 for a first offense, and from not more than $500 for a subsequent offense to, and then we go down here and there's a combination of increased penalties and license suspensions or extreme case revocation. So
that goes to judiciary.
Okay.
It's a judicial.
so those numbers go up and the suspensions in some cases go up or are clarified that it's talking about consecutive days. For a fifth violation, instead of a 1-year suspension, it would be a revocation and a $5,000 penalty.
Okay,
Section 1009 is on contraband and seizure. It's expanding to some extent the scope of what is addressed in here, although I'm not sure what how it's being handled now, but in this case, this specifically add tobacco substitutes that have been sold, offered, or possessed in violation of various statutes as contraband and subject to seizure. And it would add language saying that the destruction of contraband would be at the expense of the violator and must be in compliance with the Agency of Natural Resources hazardous waste rules.
okay. I'm gonna keep us moving till we get something that's in our jurisdiction.
All right, so campaigns around internet sales and a reference to retailers. Section 1013 is the one I was referencing that has a new prohibition on marketing, promoting, labeling, branding, advertising, distributing, offering to sell or selling tobacco product or tobacco substitute by imitating something that is not a tobacco product or tobacco substitute. And it gives examples of things that are often meant to appeal to minors. Or concealing the nature of the tobacco product or substitute, or using words or descriptions of those items. 1014 directs all penalties collected from violations of this chapter, monies received by the state from settlements based on violations of tobacco laws, and revenue from licensing fees that exceed the amounts necessary to administer and enforce the chapter would go into the tobacco trust fund and be used for tobacco cessation and prevention activities. The next couple of sections are sort of conforming changes in that regard, making sure that that money goes into the tobacco trust fund and that it is recognized as going in there. Section 4 on confidentiality of tax records would allow the Commissioner of Taxes to provide tax return or return information to the Department of Liquor and Lottery if the information is for the purposes of investigating potential violations of and enforcing the tobacco laws in Title VII. Section 5 has some policies. Now we're in the tobacco tax chapter in Title 32. So we've got some changes to the definition of cigarette that aligns it with definition in Title 33 and the master settlement agreement with the tobacco manufacturers. I don't think that has a substantive impact, but keeps us consistent in our terminology. And some changes to reflect the transfer of the wholesaler licensure to the Department of Liquor and Lottery and some of the language around tobacco substitutes that fall under other tobacco products here. Sections 6 and 7 are more conforming changes. Addressing the transfer of the wholesalers to Department of Liquor and Lottery. Section 8 redesignates the one remaining section in that subchapter on licensed wholesale dealers on bonding, moves it to a different part of the chapter. And section 9 repeals the wholesale licensure and wholesaler licensure in Title 32, again, because of the Title 7 provisions, and all of that would take effect on July 1st, 2027. Section 10 creates a new investigator position in the Department of Liquor and Lottery to enforce and investigate potential violations of Vermont laws related to online sales and other direct consumer sales and delivery of alcohol and tobacco products. Appropriates monies from the Tobacco Litigation Settlement Fund in fiscal year 2027 for the position. Expresses legislative intent. The money would come from that fund for the first 2 years, and then after that, it would be self-sustaining based on the revenue generated by the enforcement activities. And if that revenue was not enough in the future, then the department would have to propose eliminating the position as part of its next budget or budget adjustment presentation. Requires a report by March 15th of next year. An update on the status of the implementation of the new investigator position, and then starting the following year, by December, annually report on the impact of the investigators' activities on compliance with direct-to-consumer sales and delivery of alcohol and tobacco laws. Section 11 will be of interest to this particular interest to this committee. This would have the Department of Taxes in collaboration with Liquor and Lottery and the Attorney General's office, and in consultation with wholesalers and others, identify efficient and effective processes by which to impose taxes on tobacco substitutes based on the concentration of nicotine they contain. There was language in the bill as introduced that were included tobacco substitutes with the cigarettes in the stamping provisions, and there were concerns raised about that. This is having them look at a different way to do that and how to have potentially higher taxes based on higher nicotine concentration, and also to have them evaluate the continued use of tax stamps as evidence of payment of the excise tax on cigarettes, little cigars, rolling around tobacco, and the pros and cons of taking different approaches to certify tax compliance. That report would come back to committees, including this committee, in January, findings and recommendations. Finally, the act would take effect on July 1st, 2026, except as I said, the wholesaler licensure pieces would take effect, would have DLL take over in July 2027. And the first report on the impact of the investigator position would be due by December 15th of 2027. And then change the title of the bill because it no longer does tax stuff. It just has to report on it to just be regulation.
And adding the position would go to approach.
Yes, and I figured that the 160, it appropriates $160,000.
So far, the request we've had was from the Commissioner of Liquor and Lottery. And I'm not sure where the committee is going. She wanted to leave the retail licenses where they were, not go up to $1,000.
Oh, that, I thought you meant.
But we also would like to align the wholesale fee for a tobacco wholesaler with, I think it's 1,200,
Whatever it is for liquor.
whatever it is for a liquor wholesaler.
As opposed to currently it says without charge.
Yeah. So, but this will be a new licensing and a new fee for them, so they would like to do that. Committee is, I don't know where you are, but I think that one may take more than striking a number. And I'm gonna move us along because we've got a couple more witnesses, and then we have cannabis to at least walk through. So, Lieutenant King, do you?
I have nothing further, Chair, unless you need something else for me.
I haven't heard anything at this point. Thank you for being with us. And then we have Todd Dillon. Okay. And are you gonna talk to us about a new officer?
I will talk to you about whatever you would like me to talk to you about, Chair. Certainly.
Anything that's within our domain, which are taxes and fees.
Certainly. So, Todd Delos from the Attorney General's Office. I'm an Assistant Attorney General. Thank you for taking the time late on a Wednesday.
Oh, it's not late yet.
I'll let Pepper deal with late. And I don't want to stand between you and pizza at all. So to be clear, and I think Commissioner Knight, set this up well. This is a bill that we've been working on. The AGO has taken a lead role in broad tobacco enforcement, in the country. Bill Sorrell, the Attorney General, attorneys general ago, was one of the key figures in creating what's called the Master Settlement Agreement that brought Vermont hundreds of millions of dollars. It's about $25 million a year right now. So in working in that, we really are engaged in diligent enforcement. We want to ensure that Vermont is enforcing tobacco laws, and we really take a public health perspective on this. And I think public health advocates will talk about that after me. I don't want to step into that space except to say that we recognize there's a lot of long-term cost to the state of Vermont for tobacco usage. And so as we look at costs and fees, I recognize that affordability is a watchword and one that we also think is really important. And affordability has to include the cost of healthcare when we have folks who are addicted from age 12, 13, 14 to one of the most addictive substances out there. We started working on this bill last fall. We engaged quite a bit with liquor and lottery, quite a bit with tax. Every bit of testimony I think you heard from Commissioner Knight is consistent with our conversations. I think we largely agree on the bulk of the bill, and then it really is the fees and the investigator position where we don't necessarily see eye to eye. And we do appreciate not only the partnership in working on this, but the partnership we have with both of those entities in the realm of enforcement. Jen just walked you through the big pieces of the bill. Deceptive devices to us are one of the biggest ones, and I think you'll see some images of those, but they literally are things that look like highlighters. They look like the toggles on a hoodie. They look like cell phones. They look like smartwatches. They look like teddy bears.
So creative.
Capitalism is an amazing engine. It really is. And
they'll find a way to get around.
And part of I believe the role of this body is to kind of keep the path in a direction that keeps certainly our most vulnerable safe, and that's where we see these deceptive devices being really destructive. We are seeing an increase in the rates of nicotine usage. And I would say we're also not seeing a similar increase in revenue coming from that. And that's part of where we came into this bill, also looking at deceptive devices. We wanted to do some true up on the tax statutes because they're really focused. I mean, Jen didn't focus on it, but they're using a unit of measure that is from the 1850s called mils that is unique to cigarettes. We're trying to work on updating that and recognizing that this is a market that's rapidly evolving. Right. And we're seeing changes come. And part of what this bill does is kind of true that up. Part of what we would like to see, and it's for this committee's jurisdiction, is an increase in those licensing fees. First, the decoupling we think is really important. Decoupling, and I know Commissioner Knight didn't have an opportunity to speak to this, so that may be something that DLL wants to chime in on. But the concept that if you get an alcohol license, you can throw in the tobacco license for free, like almost a buy one, get one. We think it's important to separate those. And we think that's a reasonable step. It's one that was the case. I won't be able to speak to this with the same authority as DLL, but they were separate licenses. We brought them together, and I think it's appropriate to separate them out again. To your question, Senator Brock, about why $1,000. $1,000 so that we provoke this conversation, because we think it is important to talk about how much it costs to provide these products to Vermonters. And we think that there's a real value in terms of looking at the long-term public health consequences, in terms of long-term costs to the state. And I recognize the commissioner's position on not growing state government. The governor's very consistent on that. We believe, and I've heard from retailers, you can let the retailers and grocers speak for themselves, but we have heard in talking to retailers that online sales are one of the biggest challenges here. And increasing enforcement in that space is valuable. And so what we wanted to do was create a structure that said, look, we think increased fees is gonna cut back on maybe the number of places selling these products. And we can use that money to fund an investigative position to cut back on the sales that are completely unregulated. Whether they're going to youth, whether they're going to retailers or not. We know we're not getting the tax revenue on that.
Okay, but your testimony just was that by raising it up to that $1,000, we would lose retailers.
We would lose people choosing to sell tobacco products potentially. And I don't want to cut Senator Hardy off. I have a little bit more on that, which is just to say, by way of example, if it helps the committee, New York charges, I believe, $350, I have it written down here, $300, I think, for their tobacco license. Colorado is $400, California is $250, New Mexico is $750. So
Okay, that's not 1,000.
none of it is 1,000. We are comfortable seeing that number come down.
Okay, that's helpful.
Yeah, I think it was a conversation starter. Is that why you made it so high? So it would get our attention. But my question is not that actually. It's these are fees on brick and mortar retailers. And the intention is to use the money that you get from their licensing fees to do enforcement of online sales.
The intention is to increase the revenue to the overall enforcement program to pay for this position, yes.
And the position would be specific to trying to do online sale enforcement?
That is a significant area of concern in terms of how unregulated,
Is there, is selling, I'm gonna sound stupid to a room full of people, but is selling tobacco online legal right now? No, okay.
not to an individual, it's, and.
But it happened.
It's
Okay.
actually happened. We had a settlement 2 years ago with Amazon for about $400,000 because they were a platform that was allowing nicotine products to come from.
Okay, so you're trying to stop online sales of tobacco and I'm trying to like, there's not the through line for me there.
So the goal is to pay for a position to increase enforcement in a space that we understand is an area where more unlicensed and frankly unregulated products. I mean, I haven't gone into because it's not really the jurisdiction of your committee, but there's something like 13 million applications for vapes in with the FDA. They've approved roughly 50.
Yeah.
Technically, those other 12,999,950, a lot of them are not licensed and are unlawfully being sold. I'm not saying they're being sold in Vermont, but the market is it's a little wild west, and the goals of this bill, as I said, is to kind of catch the regulatory structure up with the current moment, and part of that is online sales enforcement.
And you don't have the capacity right now to do that?
So we do the enforcement once Brandon's shop hands us cases, right? And
DLL does the enforcement, but
DLL
they just testified saying they don't need a position, so. That's something,
Okay.
or they don't want a position.
That's different, the governor
versus.
they support the governor's budget.
Okay.
You say we need enforcement.
We believe it would be beneficial, and we believe it would cut back on unlawful sales. It would keep some portion of these products out of the hands of children. And, you know, from a revenue side, it also would move people who may intentionally or not. Most of our retailers are very compliant. We're not concerned about that. Moving through the proper channels so that things are taxed. That's why we're pushing for stamps. Stamps make it really easy to walk into a store. Those products that pay taxes, we don't have to worry about it. I won't go into that. That's not germane.
That's a study. Does the Attorney General's office have a position on removing a penalty, any penalty for breaking the law?
We support this, and I think you'll hear from the public health advocates. We do support the construct of getting kids treatment, and we recognize that there are studies demonstrating that kids are more likely to engage in treatment when they are not worried about whether it's a $25 fee or
Well, there's
fine or
no
otherwise.
fee for getting treatment. I don't think your enforcement officers are sitting in the treatment center waiting to nail a kid. I just have a concern about saying to a child, it's against the law for you to do this. But if you do it, nothing bad is going to happen to you. There's no legal penalty. I would rather the legal penalty stop you from smoking the 10th, 50th, or 200th, however many cigarettes it takes to get you to be addicted. Because if there's no penalty, why have it be illegal?
I understand I can't remember how you characterized it to Senator Hardy, the principal point, the philosophical point there. I think one argument, our position on it, I will say we would be comfortable if it was a point of compromise where an individual uses a fake ID. We do feel like
That's deliberate.
that there is a shift.
You make it so they stop IDing me.
That's what I find it very flattering.
No, I have grandchildren that are old enough to buy one. It's just annoying to have to keep getting my driver's license.
I would also just say, sorry, Senator.
Oh, so you're saying you'd like to keep the possession off the table, but any attempt to procure, purchase, or acquire would still be
Using a fake ID.
Just, I believe it's subsection C of the section in question, and it's on page 9. Subsection C of 1005.
This represents their age.
By presenting
Yeah,
false
yeah.
identification.
Okay.
I would also just, as a counterpoint, not necessarily that, is simply that, we've had these laws in the books for a long time, and it hasn't cut back on youth smoking. What's going to come back on youth smoking
We're
is
thinking.
fair enough. But it's going to be increased education, increased cessation programs, and cutting back on these very we were making headway, and then vapes came in and kind of blew the whole thing up.
Yeah.
And the public health advocates will really be able to speak to that.
Okay. But I'm looking at the time, I've still got cannabis to go through. And I'm gonna have to hold us just to our sections, which are these. Jill, I'm sorry, I can't get into public health. You can send us,
Do you want to hear some of our justification? And I do have slides.
well, I'm only touching the fees.
Okay, well,
Okay, I'm not, we don't have jurisdiction over legal penalties.
But I
It
take it,
may sway how I vote on the bill, but we don't have jurisdiction, and I've got cannabis to still do. These all have to go to a
could
probes.
we talk about the wholesale, and retail and that piece of it too?
The fees,
No, but there's a potential for like just the rationale of moving the decoupling and what we're trying to do there, and then having the wholesale.
I think we're fine with the decoupling.
Okay,
If it has anything to do with the $1,000 fee, that's in our jurisdiction.
do you want me to say my name on the record and say?
If you want to say something about the fees, that's fine. Otherwise, you could send us an email on the evils of smoking. I think that's a given.
Okay, I'm gonna say something on the fees.
Okay,
Jill Sudhoff, Karen, representing the.
okay, so you can come on.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
I think as an action item to propose to our morning committee and the vice chair that we consider what Todd has suggested regarding possible still allowing the fake ID to still.
That would
So,
be very helpful if you could bring us an amendment. Because I really would like to get these voted out of here tonight, if possible, because they do have to go across the country.
So I think we have some time tomorrow morning in economic development to
Okay,
consider fee revisions or for the kinds of things.
then we can hold
Senator
off
Pittman
on
wanted.
voting this out until tomorrow.
I no guarantee, of course, the committee will do it, but
Right,
it's.
we still got cannabis to do this evening. Okay,
Jill Sudhoff, Karen, representing the Coalition for Tobacco Free Vermont and the Campaign for Tobacco Free Kids. Thank you for having our comments. And I will say that we support the decoupling of the the alcohol and the tobacco, and then the licensing fee, we support it being a palatable fee increase, but we do support it being meaningful and that retailers take it as meaningful. So just in comparison, cannabis licenses annually are $10,000. And so we were saying, like, if it was $365, that'd be $1 a day for tobacco retailers. And they make considerably more, specifically on the tobacco substitutes, which range anywhere from $15 to $25 each. Yeah, so $1 a day. The other thing that I'll just remind you all is that tobacco related healthcare costs the state $404 million annually, and 93.7 million of that is Medicaid expenditures. So we are talking about affordability here, because we're talking about kids being targeted by these products. And then in terms of the PUP, is that something that you want to hear, Chair? What?
Possession use.
Purchases that,
Yeah, what we were just talking about,
yeah, so this is related to revenues.
yes, so if you actually look at some of the school guidance around minimizing the impacts of the vape use and how schools are approaching handling youth and the tobacco substitute use, they are recommending that we don't penalize youth. They are recommending restorative justice. And there's a body of research, like Senator Shipman was saying, that shows that youth are less likely to come forward. And we feel like the manufacturers just continue to ship these products. They're made to appeal and designed to appeal to kids, and kids know it, and they are using them. And the nicotine levels in these products too are extremely high. So it's a very different product than cigarettes.
You know, that was brought up obviously in
Yeah.
the committee and in the committee fight in the Economic Development, Housing and General Affairs Committee, and I'm sure the committee considered at that time. Is there anything different that you would add to it that would impact what we're doing with these here?
Anything different for
That you've already testified to and that other advocates say
on the pup piece? I'm sorry.
on the issue of changing the fee schedule for any of these products.
Of why?
It's too much.
Well, I'm saying, is there anything other than what you've already presented to the committee
I'm interested.
that we should consider opening a discussion up tomorrow?
Percent economic development.
Yes.
I think we were suggesting that the fee go down.
Mhm.
And we're supporting that it get to a place that makes sense for the retailers, and I was suggesting $1 a day.
Yeah.
And so
Try. This is, these are.
I like that. So we'll take this up at Senate Economic Development tomorrow. I'm gonna send this email out now, Mr. Vice Chair. We'll do what we can do.
We'll take a look at it. So, as I say, it sounds like much of the testimony that we have already heard.
Yeah.
And
We're
that's
not gonna vote.
consider repeating again.
Yes, we're gonna have to walk some again. Okay, I'm gonna move on. I'm starting to lose committee members. I'm putting these on for tomorrow for amendments and vote. That'll give economic development time. And then we'll move some of the other ones that don't have to go Friday. But we may be, one of these days, we may be here. So we're gonna move along to cannabis, and we have Tucker in the waiting room. So Tucker, good, this will be a logical one. We can walk through this one. Before we start taking testimony. Okay. So Tucker, the floor. Geez, the room is empty now. I guess cannabis isn't.
Tobacco was so popular.
All right. let's go. Let's see if we can go through this. Floor is yours. Room is
Afternoon Committee, Tucker Anderson Legislative Council. You should have in front of you S-278. You should be looking at draft 3.2, which is the strike-all amendment that was voted out of Senate Economic Development. How would the committee like me to approach this? Would you like a high-level overview of the sections of the bill?
Let's do high level and then just focus in on our sections of the bill.
I will do so, and I will share my screen, and I apologize for any toddler noises you hear. It is late in the evening, and my son is attempting to eat his dinner, which also includes throwing his food tray.
That's fine. We will understand this. Some of us have been on the receiving end.
My wife probably answered now.
You may still be on the receiving end.
In section 1, this proposes to raise the packaging limit from 100 milligrams of THC to 200 milligrams of THC per package. Sections 2, 3, and 4 all go together conceptually. In section 2, the transaction limit for how much an individual can purchase in a single transaction is raised from 1 ounce to 2 ounces. And then the provisions in Title 18 that govern civil and criminal penalties for possession are increased proportionately to reflect the increase in the transaction limit from 1 ounces to 2 ounces of cannabis and 5 to 10 grams of hashish.
And the Health and Welfare Committee is also looking at this bill without possession.
Sections 5 and 6 also go together conceptually. They establish 2-year pilot programs for 2 new permits that would be issued by the Cannabis Control Board. The first permit that is part of the program is the event permit. There would be 20 of these permits issued annually, split 10 and 10 between 10 public events and 10 private events. And structurally, this would be the same as some of the alcoholic beverage permits that you heard about earlier, special events, festivals, things like that. And I'm happy to go into more detail if that's what you would like, but I will focus in on a provision that relates to your committee's jurisdiction, which is the fees. So for the event permit, the fee is $500. And the split that is reflected in this subsection E is similar to the split that you see for some of the other cannabis licenses in Title VII. 50% to the host municipality, 50% to the Cannabis Control Board. In section 6, the other pilot program is going to be delivery permits. This allows Tier 1 and 2 cultivators and Tier 1 and 2 manufacturers that hold a license under Title VII to deliver from their licensed establishment directly to consumers in Vermont. There will be no more than 15 of these issued annually during the 2-year pilot period. And again, focusing in on this committee's specific jurisdiction, the permit fee is $100 for the delivery permit. And background, in case you want it, the language in this section directly reflects the second-class retail delivery permit that is established for alcoholic beverages in Title VII. Sections 7 and 8 relate to this pilot program. They both make sure that the holders of these permits under the pilot program are included in the statutory requirements for payment of taxes. In section 10, there is a required report on the pilot program from the CCB and a timeline for adopting rules governing this program, along with recommendations for any statutory changes by the time the program ends, if the CCB determines and recommends that the program continue indefinitely. Section 11 amends a few provisions related to regulation by local government related to cannabis. So the First Amendment allows voters to petition for the opt-in vote in their municipality. Later on in this section, there is an existing exception to one of the conditions on a local license that is available specifically for outdoor cultivators. It relates to conditions around abatement of public nuisances, and added to that exception are indoor cultivators and tier 1 manufacturers. Section 12 changes the timeline for distribution of local share of license fees from quarterly to an annual basis for the distribution of that local share. In section 13, there's an adjustment to the terms and fee for employee licenses. It shifts from an annual license to a biennial license, and the fee is raised accordingly from $50 to $100 for that 2-year license. There's also an adjustment to the product registration provision here, allowing for certain products to be registered for longer terms, provided that they're shelf stable. We're going to zoom through a whole bunch of sections here because they all relate to the repeal of integrated license provisions. The integrated license, from what I understand, is no longer really an active license that is used.
Okay.
So I'll try to keep track with my own blurry, tired eyes to make sure that I have not gone too far here. Okay. So we're on page 20 going into 21 under the reader assistance heading CBDF grants for cultivators, manufacturers, and economic empowerment businesses. This amends the statute related to the Cannabis Business Development Fund, and it allows the fund to be used to provide low interest rate loans and grants to tier 1 cultivators, manufacturers, and businesses granted economic empowerment status by the CCB. So this expands the eligible entities and licensees that could get access to these loans and grants. The next 3 sections definitely relate more to the finance end here, and I'm happy to spend some time on them, but I would recommend that if you want background information and explanation, that you consult with the Department of Taxes. The reason being is that these are their recommendations for some clarifications and updates related to taxes and associated overlap with Title VII. So first, within the definitions, within the, I believe it's the property tax credit chapter in Title 32, there's an addition to the definition for modified adjusted gross income to expressly include cannabis business expense deductions. In the next section, there's an update to the subsection of 7 VSA section 869 that deals with, later on in some of the subdivisions listed underneath, the use value appraisal program. And the amendments here eliminate a reference to cultivators licensed under Title VII to cultivate cannabis outdoors on a parcel of land, and changes that to as defined by CCB rule. Finally, in section 26, this adds an exception to the general rule governing confidentiality of tax records to allow the department to share some of that tax return information with the CCB for purposes of administering the cannabis excise tax and the sales and use tax as it applies to cannabis. All right, in section 27, this is a little bit of a workaround, adding a new section to allow cannabis cultivators to form cooperative corporations. Currently, they are not included within the definition of agriculture or handcraft products that are allowed to form these cooperative corporations. So this section gives them the express authority to form the same sort of cooperative corporation. In section 28, there are two appropriations, $1 million transferred from the general fund to the Cannabis Business Development Fund, and then 1.68 million appropriated to the Vermont Land Access and Opportunity Board. The repeals listed here, the first chunk relate to the integrated license provisions that we fast forwarded through. And then the last two are the prospective sunsets of the pilot programs that I covered, the event permit and the delivery permit. Quickly note that in the effective dates, there's a retroactive provision that makes the updates to the household income cannabis business expense deduction retroactive and apply to household income received beginning in the 2025 calendar year. And that is all for me, unless you have some truly excellent questions.
Senator Hardy.
Thank you. So I have two questions. There's not changes to the tax rates associated with cannabis? Okay, I think that might
That's
be
correct.
draft. Okay.
Okay.
And then my second question, and maybe this is for Pepper, if he's still with us,
He's with us and I'm starting to think maybe we could vote this out.
is that the delivery program. A little concerned about that one. Does it still have all the requirements for IDs and all that? I mean, there's a really strict process for getting into and purchasing something at a cannabis retail operation. Do those all apply with the delivery program?
It's certainly an interesting question because some of the licensees that would be eligible for this don't otherwise sell their products, right? This would be a new.
Oh, this is the farmer could deliver to a customer.
Oh.
Oh, this is a little starting to see, yeah.
Now, having said that, the underlying requirements in Title VII for sale and identification would still apply. And if you take a look at that section, there are specific requirements set out in that statutory provision for how the sale can take place, limited hours, things like that. But also the Cannabis Control Board is given fairly broad discretion to adopt procedures governing the issuance of these permits. And as part of those procedures, they're allowed to put conditions on the issuance of the delivery permit and to adopt security and safety requirements as part of it, which could include, for example, the requirement that as part of the statutorily required training for this permit, that the licensee ensure that identification is taken at the point of sale.
Okay. Thanks, Tucker.
Get one up. So our jurisdiction in this bill sounds like there was a fee or a tax in the underlying bill.
For the record, James Pepper, Chair of the Cannabis Control Board. The areas that I see that you have most strict jurisdiction over is the fee for the event permit,
Okay,
the fee
Yeah.
for the delivery permit,
okay,
the 2-year employee ID, changing it from a 1 to 2 year.
that's just an adjustment.
Right. Same with the product registration, those things, you know, if people are, they're all prorated, so it shouldn't impact the amount of revenue that's coming in, whether they're 1 or 2 year, but possibly the timing. People may, you know, be paying $100 in year 1 instead of $50 in year 1, $50 in year 2.
Okay,
And then the tax provisions from the Department of Taxes, which, you know, I have an explanation from them, but Abby Shepherd is, said she'd be available to testify. They've all been approved by the administration. So, and they're all, I think, were described as, this is how we're doing things now. We just want to make sure that the statutory language matches with our current practices. So I
okay,
don't
and
think
where's that? Michelle?
those are the 3 tax provisions are section 26. section 25, so if it's on the reverse order. And section 24, so 24, 25, and 26. The tax case. So the event permit, again, there are going to be no more than 20 of them annually between now and I think it's 2-year pilot. So maybe up to 40 of them. You know, our testimony was, it's a $500 per permit. Half goes to the cannabis regulation fund, half goes to the local municipality that's hosting the event.
This is the event.
That's the
So
event,
these are really, yeah, those are just clarifying what
the tax
the
provisions.
correct provisions are.
Right,
Okay.
exactly.
The modified adjusted gross income means federally adjusted gross income.
Exactly. And then the outdoor cultivations, you know, what you said there is you gave outdoor cultivators the right to keep their cannabis cultivation within their current use plot if they're otherwise eligible for current use. They hit the 27 acres, wherever it is. They don't have to exclude the cannabis cultivation of their outdoor. But there's no statutory definition of outdoor. So this is just saying as the cannabis board defines outdoor cultivation. So that's just without the use of artificial light. So, the last provision is allowing the tax department to share certain information for investigative purposes.
And they're already, that's what they're doing now.
They do it for the adult use side, but not the medical use. This all represents for the medical side.
Okay.
So really, I think the main provisions, for you all is $500 the appropriate amount for an event license. Is $100 the appropriate amount for a delivery permit. I was very clear with the community of jurisdiction that cannabis board may not issue all 20 event permits per year or all 15 delivery permits. We're not getting any additional staff in this. We're just gonna have to see how these things go, roll it out slowly.
And this isn't a light, so I'd have to come in and pay you the $100 fee to get a delivery permit.
And that seems really low to me.
Does, given, I mean, we started this with delivery to restaurants for small brewers, because distributors would, and we started with the events, and now we're doing the same for cannabis. Somebody said yesterday one of these events could be at a farmer's market, and there's already 4, 5, 6 and rising sampling going on at farmers markets with alcohol. And there seem to be fewer farmers, so I'm getting concerned about what we're creating here.
And I think that the Senate Health and Welfare Committee is going to be looking at these exact provisions
We
tomorrow.
are definitely,
Yes.
Right.
I mean, I'm less concerned about the events. I'm more concerned about the delivery because that just seems like there, when you're at a stationary place, you can have more controls, but if you're just like driving out to somebody's house in the middle of nowhere, you know, it feels riskier to me for a lot of reasons. I didn't really love the delivery of the alcohol either, but I think that happened during camp.
well, that wasn't
COVID.
that was it.
That was a COVID thing that we just made permanent. But I mean, Tucker was talking about you guys being able to regulate it. I mean, I'm assuming you're going to still ask for ID and have all those kinds of
Right.
provisions.
We are, and I raised a lot of the similar concerns in Senate Economic Development. When you have a kind of fixed location where retail sales are happening, it's a lot easier to regulate.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's an important piece of the seed to sale tracking.
exactly.
What gives me comfort about this section, as Tucker described, is there is a very broad grant authority to the board to make sure that we can put in place all of the same restrictions that a retailer would have at a fixed location. What we've seen in other states is the majority of other states have delivery, including all of our New England neighbors, is that the cost of the regulation of doing delivery exceeds the profitability of being a deliverer. So many, this isn't a viable business type. In Massachusetts, they require 2 drivers, that one driver can be in the car, kind of guarding the product at all times. And in order to deal with possible diversion or youth sales, they have to wear body cameras. I don't think we would do that here, especially given the kind of confidentiality issues that exist that are kind of inherent to cannabis. But it's just an example of how regulators respond to the inherent risks of delivery sales. Again, this is a pilot. I was, clear with the Economic Development Committee, where we will only roll this out in a way that we can actually have some semblance of control over, and that the grant of authority for us to develop this program was very broad.
Yeah, I mean, for all those reasons, that's why I like the events are much easier to deal with, I think.
You know what they are, where they're at.
Yeah, and they're stationary. It's the delivery is much more concerning to me. I would prefer not to have it in the bill, but I also, if we are going to have it in the bill, I do think $100 is a pretty low fee for it. So I'd rather see a higher fee, $250 or something at least.
So I'm not opposed to raising that fee while you're here, and so I can just honor the comment, the question I had, and it's late in the day, and it seems the theme of the day to drag things out. Can you speak to what the Lieutenant Governor's office is asking for this Senate Finance Committee to consider?
Yes. If you recall, last year, there was a proposal to cut outdoor cultivation fees in half. And in order to offset the cost of that, to raise certain other fees. There was some discussion here. It was late in the session. The budget had already passed at that point. So it was almost a non-starter at that point, because it was going to cost.
Yeah, I don't think that even hit this committee. It may have.
It did very briefly at the end of the session. Yeah, at the very end of the session. And you took that proposal out of the bill and replaced it with a study committee about reducing fees. I had it posted under my name today, the report that we did, Act 56. One of the recommendations, we took a lot of stakeholder input about should fees be adjusted to better reflect the intent of the legislature to support small local farmers and people who have been historically harmed by cannabis prohibition. So we do have a report. It goes into the ration. The proposal that I've heard is just cut all the outdoor cultivation fees in half. And and just don't offset the cost by raising other fees. If you need the kind of rationale for why you may want to do that, it's in the report. And that's based upon just a number of stakeholders.
You aren't recommending that at this point.
Our fee revenue doesn't come close to meeting our budgetary needs already. And that was a conscious decision by the legislature to make this an accessible market that wasn't dominated by just a few very wealthy corporations. Because there is no lending in this industry. Banks are not lending to start a cannabis company. There is no small business support. So you intentionally set the fees, you structured the fee schedule to try to encourage outdoor cultivation. You structured them to try and make them more accessible for small businesses, and you scale them up in a way that make them very unattractive to larger businesses. This is once again comes down to how do you want to structure the fee schedule, knowing that anything you do will just further that delta between what our actual operating expenses are and what the fees bring.
And this is 6 o'clock on Wednesday of our crossover week. Barring a recommendation from the cannabis board, this is going through the other body where hopefully now that report's out, they will have more time to look at it, but I don't think.
Can we just at least do the delivery fee, increase that
We want to put to,
$250?
I was thinking two, but
I was thinking 1,000.
do you want to hear two?
I mean, you already said that you don't have enough fee revenue to cover your costs, and this one seems like it's gonna be a tricky one to deal with, so. At the very least, get you a little bit more revenue, but I also just, it's concerning to me, so I'd rather have it be a higher fee, so.
Yeah,
I would,
can we agree on about
I would just
250?
leave it all then. If we're not gonna look further into the outdoor recommendations that are on here.
Do you want to look further into the outdoor recommendations?
I mean, like you said, if it's gonna go to the other side, other body.
It's gonna go the.
Well, this is a new thing that's being proposed.
No, I know.
Those are existing, of existing services, and that's why I was, if we're gonna start a new thing. That's got more risk associated with it, then.
Well, the Cannabis Control Board has like a deference on what.
But you can't change the fees.
They can't change the fees, that's all we do.
Just read.
No, I'm aware of that, but
Okay. Senator Beck, how do you feel about raising that delivery license fee?
It's not raising a fee, it's a new fee, so we're setting.
New
Yeah,
setting
exactly.
the fee.
New fee, set a new
Fair
fee.
enough.
For somebody who can drive out to your house at night and deliver. I assume it's under the legal sale limit of how much they can deliver.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we can determine by this, how much is allowed to be in the car at a single time, which is.
Okay.
I'd say 100. I mean, I think this is gonna be as, James said, I mean, this is gonna be a very expensive proposition for people to do this at all.
So the price of gas.
Mileage, two people. I mean.
Well, you don't have to, we have, that's Massachusetts, that's too.
Can I just make a motion to increase the fee? You guys can all vote it down, but at least they'll be on the record and then I can vote for the bill. Is that,
Go.
okay, I moved it. I just feel uncomfortable with that program. I want to have something I move that we increase that we set the fee, thank you, set the fee for the delivery pilot program at $250 for a licensee. Is that what it is?
Straw poll or official, what are we doing?
That's an official motion. We're going to officially vote. I have a feeling.
I have one thing to say here before we vote yes.
It might,
My understanding is that at this moment. Stores can't deliver tobacco.
right,
They can deliver alcohol though.
Yes. Written drinks,
Yeah.
but I don't think they can like.
But counterpoint, farmers can sell at farmers market, direct to
Wait, we have our lawyer who just
Tucker's
popped
with
up
us.
here.
This is in a way allowing you to grow marijuana to sell direct under certain conditions because they can't.
could have your own little buying circle and never sell to.
So are you saying, so this would be open to a farmer
Yeah,
Right.
that just,
correct.
okay, no, we don't have to have that whole discussion.
What were you gonna say, Tucker?
I was gonna say that this delivery permit is based off of just one very specific type of alcoholic beverage delivery permit. So the to-go cocktail delivery stuff that happened during COVID is completely separate model. It's a permit model that actually doesn't have its own fee. It just allows first, second, and third class licensees to sell certain types of alcoholic beverages for off-premises consumption. This is based off the retail delivery permit, which in alcoholic beverages is just available to second-class licensees, which are your retail locations. It has a $100 fee. It uses all of the same criteria that you see in this bill as far as the licensee obligations. And it only allows those retailers to sell from their retail location and deliver using an employee and a retail business-owned vehicle their products from their location to the end user. And part of what I heard earlier and most recently in your discussion relates to something totally separate, which is direct-to-consumer shipping of alcohol, which is a separate licensing structure. It involves out-of-state actors. It has separate fee provision, and it involves third-party delivery entities, common carriers like the Postal Service, FedEx,
Oh,
things like that. That's
I
not
was-
involved here.
what I was referring to, Tucker, was the ability of, let's say, a convenience store owner that sells tobacco or vape or anything else. They can't deliver that product right now. Is that true?
For tobacco, but those convenience stores, if they sell alcoholic beverages, are second-class locations, and technically they can get a retail delivery permit from the Department of Liquor and Lottery to deliver malt beverages, vinous beverages, and ready-to-drink spirits beverages to consumers in Vermont.
But not tobacco. Not tobacco. Yeah. Now,
Okay,
so for clarity, would this allow a farmer? That's.
well, that's what I thought, but Tucker said no, it
No.
would have to be a retail establishment.
In the alcoholic beverages space, but in this bill, you have limited the cannabis licensees that can get this delivery permit. And you have specifically pulled in tier 1 and tier 2 cultivators
Okay,
and tier 1 and tier 2 manufacturers. So you, interestingly, for the delivery permit, have excluded the retail establishments under the cannabis statutes.
Oh,
But there are some retailers that are also cultivators and manufacturers,
Yes.
right? So they can still do it if they have.
Yeah. I mean, that's really weird because the cultivators and the processors are not as familiar with all the regulations you have to do to. They don't have the setup to do the sales in the same way.
They also just, because of that, they feel like and I just want to paraphrase for them, David Mickenberg's in the room, but they are not getting a huge markup, or they are. When they
Selling
sell the
wholesale.
retailer, yeah, they're selling wholesale, so the retailers are getting a large part of the profit. This would allow them to sell direct.
as long as they do it.
As long as they conform to all the rules that I trust David, Mr. Pepper, to enforce, that I don't think it's gonna circumvent those things.
So this would let the farmer that's growing it.
It's late in the day, so.
So I definitely want to do this $100.
Just not,
All right, I believe I have a motion on the floor. Is there any more discussion on the motion? We now know that there are regulations. The Cannabis Board has the ability to put in some guardrails, but this basically would allow a cultivator who is now selling wholesale to a retailer or to a processor, but it would also allow the maker of the brownies to deliver to your house
Processor. Yep.
to process.
The maker of
Okay.
brownies.
So the motion is that we set the license fee, delivery fee at $250. Further discussion, if not, I'm just going to say, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. That's what I
No.
thought. It's 3-3. You're welcome to try again tomorrow.
We're not moving it tonight.
I was gonna try and get it out tonight. We can.
That's okay. I just wanted to, I gave it a shot. I'm concerned about the section. I'm now on record being concerned about the
Okay.
section.
Okay.
I'm fine if you want to vote on the bill.
All right. We still need to hear from Ted to know what the fiscal impact.
Oh,
Do we have
right.
any more?
I don't have anything more. I know that,
We have
I think a lot of your concerns will be heard, at least at the Senate level.
Yeah.
Ted, give us a fiscal update. I hate voting this out now because I don't know that the office is still there. Can you text upstairs and see if they're still there? If not, we can meet in here at 9:05 tomorrow and vote.
I will not be here.
That will not be here. All right.
We have most, I don't think Senator Dulles will be sad to miss it. She's gonna get a second shot. Morning.
Thanks. Well, yeah, that's.
Sure, Probes asked me if we're gonna vote this out today. I don't know if that's pressure if we can get it to a Probes or
Who is,
Andrew.
they were trying to get it out and tell him, yes, he's not supposed to text during meetings. Okay,
Tim Barnett, Joint Fiscal Office. Chair Pepper covered, most of the fiscal impacts in the bill, particularly those that pertain to this committee. So I will gloss over a lot of them. They're also evident by doing the math in the bill, right? If you have 20 event permits and a $5 each, right?
doubling the
Yeah.
fee doesn't change.
Exactly. So I will spare you all at this time of day, a full review of that. I will note, however, there are two pieces that weren't covered. Or I would like to provide a little additional context on in section 24.
A minute.
I'll be speaking in section 24. That section would change the calculation of household income that is used to calculate property tax credits. And so it would allow folks who have cannabis businesses to deduct business expenses from their definition of income for the property tax credit only. This is separate from personal and corporate income.
Okay.
We conferred with the Department of Taxes, and they did the initial number crunching and we reviewed it, and it seems like there's a very minimal impact to, there would be a minimal impact to the education, de minimis, certainly de
We
minimis,
love the word de minimis. Okay.
within the education and general fund, and within,
Unless we see a huge influx of. Yeah,
yes, and this is, you know,
Why is this? Is there another kind of business that gets to do this?
all businesses, if you are, if you have a passive business, for example, and so you're receiving income from that business, and your household income is dependent on that business, you're allowed to deduct your cost of goods and services, right, can be deducted from household income. So the idea here is to provide parity with all of the
it's
type
the
of.
profit that is the income, not
Yep.
the base income.
Um,
Gross and
sorry.
net, it's gross and net income.
And standard caveat, since we are talking about the education fund, while this is a de minimis impact, absent other changes in policy, the homestead education property yield for statewide homestead educational property tax rates may need to be adjusted to account for foregone revenue. Another very tiny, minute piece, but it pertains to fees, is there was language that would allow folks to form cannabis cooperatives under Title 11, Chapter 9. Folks who organize in that way pay a $20 fee. I can't imagine there would be a lot of revenue from that, but wanted to flag that is involved here as well.
Okay, but if they file one, we'll make $20 and earlier in the day next year, we could adjust it if anyone wants one.
Total, and I just, yes, this is dotting i's, crossing t's, even though we're late in the day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Okay, questions for Ted? All right, committee, what would you like to do with this? Burning is not allowed.
I would move favorably draft 3.2 of S 278 as presented to us from Senate Committee on Economic Development and Housing Affairs.
Okay. Senator Chittenden has moved favorably, and what version is that?
3.2
3.2 of
S
S 278, as it came to us from Vermont Housing Economic Development and General Affairs. Is there further discussion, amendments? If not, the clerk will call the roll on this one.
Senator Chittenden.
Yeah.
Senator Beck.
Yes.
Senator Hardy.
Yes.
Senator Brock.
I guess so.
That leaves
Senator Gulick. Senator Meadows, yes. Senator Cummings.
yes.
6-0-1.
Okay, you report that to Journal. Okay, committee, that is it. Thank you.